So today I'm going to take a whack at the last wheel that needs new brakes on the variant. And I thought before I got into that I'd let you know a little bit about what I've been doing for these last few weeks. I've made a lot of progress and I haven't made a lot of videos. So partially because I don't like making videos when I'm doing something for the first time, because that's not going to make a very good video. It's just going to be me messing up, going to the parts store, buying new tools, trying it again, changing it out, whatever the case may be. So I've got enough practice now on some of the things that I've done, and I feel like this video might actually be a little more useful. So I'll let you know about what I've done so far. The front brakes, they're all done. I've converted them to disc, so that'll be nice. These are going to work a lot better than the drum brakes, and these parts aren't rare or hard to find, so when I need pads I can just order by part number and not have to alter things. That's what I originally had to do. I got drum brake shoes for the rear, and then I can make those work for the front by drilling some holes and making them fit, but everything was a mess and the cylinders weren't working very well and everything was just kind of screwed up, and so I decided to convert to disc, and that went on pretty well. I'm basically done with the front end now. You can see I've got my new steering coupler on there. Everything's been painted and is all nice looking. I've got new brake lines, new brakes, new shocks, a new steering damper. Everything's kind of coming out well up here. The rear, last week I knocked out this driver's side, so I have fresh brakes on here. These are all painted and nice and clean inside. I've pulled off this side of the axle tube and I got everything out of there. I put new seals in there, and on that note, I ordered a transmission seal kit from whoever I got it from. I don't know. I price shopped around. I just wanted a good one. But they sent a number of these seals, these little guys. Make sure you can see that okay. Yeah, these guys. So they came with quite a few, and they go right here next to the plate that holds the axle tube on. And they sent me maybe 7 or 8 of these in the kit, and I thought, well, this is weird. Why are there so many of these? I only have 2 spots where they could go. And I thought maybe they just assume that you tear them every now and then, or whatever. But what happened was I threw one back in, put everything back together, and then when I tried to move the axle to get it back into place where it's supposed to be, it would not budge. You see this boot here is supposed to be able to provide a little bit of motion, and this axle rises and falls with the suspension, and there's a kind of a ball joint in there that it pivots around in, and with just one of those seals in there, it had clamped down on that so tight that you could not move the axle at all, and if you did move it, you'd probably just break something. So I did a little bit of research and I found out that those are not in fact seals. They do provide a bit of sealing protection for the transmission, but they're actually called shims, and they're very, very thin. I thought that was a bad thing. I thought, well, these are cheap. They're basically tissue paper. But you're supposed to put enough in there to where you make enough distance to provide just the right amount of pressure on that axle to be able to rise and fall freely in there and still maintain a seal on the little ball joint structure that's inside. So with a little bit of trial and error, I had to take the axle tube off, put another one in, put it back on, and check, and back and forth until I finally got the right number. But I'm satisfied now. The axle tube, they say, if you raise it all the way up, you should be able to let go of it, and it will slowly fall back down. You don't want it to jerk down or just drop out of your hands, and you don't want to have to force it down. So that's where I've got that axle now. And they do say that you can measure the seals that you bring out with a micrometer and see, and then maybe have it in one shot, just put on exactly what you need. But I didn't have anything like that, and so I just had to play the trial and error game. So another little thing that I started doing was for the rust removal. You know, I've been doing electrolysis for some of the bigger things. I've got my bucket set up here with my battery charger and the washing soda. And for things that fit in the bucket, that works really well. But I was coming to the point where a lot of the stuff that I wanted to remove rust from is like one little piece within the brakes system or a bolt or something like that. And you know, it takes 12 hours or so to really get a good run out of the electrolysis system, and that's a long time to wait for a single bolt. So I did a little bit of research online, and I came across this product by Crud Cutter. This one is specifically rust remover and inhibitor. It comes in a spray bottle. You could use that to just spray onto a rusted piece of metal and just keep re-wetting it until it's done. But I poured it all into a bucket, and then I just tossed all my small bits and bobs in that bucket, left it for 3 or 4 hours, and I swear to God, it was like I went to the parts store and bought new bolts. It blew my mind with how well it worked. So I've been using that to do my small pieces and parts that maybe fit in the bucket, but I don't really want to waste the time on putting in there. That's really where I'm at for now. Today I'm going to get this rear wheel off and start that last set of drum brakes. And while I'm in there, I'll remove all the axle seals and the wheel bearing seals and everything down in there. Pull off this axle tube, pull these two pieces off, and put new seals in there. Get this all cleaned up, and then the plan from there, once both sides of these rear wheels are done, I will pull the transmission and the wheels out as one solid unit, and then finish up the rest of the pan. And then hopefully I'll send it back to ISP West and we'll have a completed car in the next few months. So yeah, enjoy today's video. Rear brakes on Type 3. Enjoy. So what you're seeing here made my day so much easier. When I did the other side, I did not have a bearing puller. I used a spring compressor that I got years ago to do the shocks on my caliber, and I would apply a little bit of pressure with it, and then I would smack the axle tube flange with a hammer to release that pressure and move the bearing maybe a millimeter, and then repeat that whole process over and over and over again for over an hour to get that axle tube off the other side because the bearings were stuck so tight. So definitely recommend a bearing puller if you're going to do this job. It was done in less than a few minutes. So what you can see me doing here is painting a little bit of bearing grease onto the seating surfaces where all the gaskets go.
And this does a couple of things. One, it makes it a little easier to install the gaskets, because once you fit them over the bolts and lay them against that grease, it kind of sticks to it and it doesn't want to come off. So when you're trying to put the part on, you don't knock it off and tear it or do something like that. The other thing that it does is it fills in all the little gaps and it kind of stays there throughout the life of that gasket, and it will make that seal a little bit better. A moment ago, you saw me give a thumbs down to an O-ring and a thumbs up to the gasket that I used. That was on purpose. What I was trying to signify there is that the kit that I bought came with many different gaskets and things to go into the transmission, and that O-ring was one of them. I found out that the O-ring is only necessary in later models. So what they did was that plate that I just bolted on, it had a groove etched out in the seating surface of it that would be the spot where that the O-ring would sit. And if it does have that groove, then you use the O-ring and not the gasket. Since mine did not have that groove, I used the gasket and not the O-ring. You never use both. Um, so this was, something that I found when I was perusing the website, because the gasket does fit and the O-ring does fit, but it just doesn't seem quite right. And so I looked it up. Turns out I was going to do something terribly wrong and probably cause a leak. And so there's lesson learned. Don't repeat my mistakes. So now you're seeing me rebuilding the wheel cylinder for the rear wheels. This was what ended up being the demise of the front brakes. I had drums on the front, and they had wheel cylinders that were not very much like these. They had a single piston in each one, and they weren't opposing each other like they are in this one. And so they would also not come out. As you can see, I'm kind of struggling to get these out of this one. And once you get one out, it's a lot easier to get the other out, because look what just happened there. You just knock it out from the other side. It's an open tube. The other ones on the front are not like that. So I ended up having to try to drill them out, and it just was not going well. And so that's ultimately what led to me getting the disc brakes in the front. Those wheel cylinders were just unrecoverable, and because they were so rare, they wanted about $60 each for one of them, and I need 4 of them for the front. I was not about to spend over $200 on brake parts for the front end. When a disc brake set is maybe 3 or 4 times that much, but now it's disc brakes, so I'm really happy with that. So by this time, you've probably noticed that a lot of this video has been me in my parts washer just scrubbing away at parts. You may have seen me throw some things into the electrolysis bucket. You've seen me throw some things into that little bucket. That's the bucket that I filled with that rust remover stuff. And I left all of these in to illustrate how much cleaning is involved in the restoration of this car. It would have been easy for me to buy all those bolts. I could have bought a lot of those brake parts. A lot of these things are pretty cheap, but there's really nothing wrong with the ones that I have. They're just dirty, they're rusty, and they need a little love and care. And so, yes, I'm spending a lot of time cleaning and scrubbing and restoring old parts when this stuff is available, but I feel like I'm trying to take a little bit more pride in this. I'm trying to save a little money here and there. And so while I'm spending a lot of extra time doing this, it is kind of fun, and it is kind of nice knowing that I'm keeping something that's 50 something years old versus buying new stuff and just making it work. These Volkswagens are known for longevity. They last forever if you keep keep taking care of them. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do. So yes, this video had very much cleaning, and I just wanted to illustrate that that's what most of my day was today. I spent probably 8 or 9 hours in total making this video and doing this brake job. If I just bought all new parts, I probably could have knocked it out in 2 hours. But I wanted to salvage this. I wanted to clean it and make it new again, and so that's what I did.
Shut up and sit down.
So this backing plate got scrubbed in the parts washer after it got first removed, and then it went into the electrolysis bucket and sat there for most of the day while I was doing all of this work and making this video. And as you can see, it came pretty clean. It's actually kind of shiny and silver again, and it just really works wonders. It's quite a good system. And then as you'll see here in a moment, I paint it and start putting everything back together.
Shut up and sit down.